And we heard about this right off early on when ChatGPT first
Yeah.
dropped. We knew it was coming. We knew someone was going to get sanctioned, and it has happened all the time. You type in lawyer sanctioned
Yes.
AI or lawyer sanctioned ChatGPT on Google, you're going to get page after page of people who did it. And it does run the gamut from new lawyers to lawyers who have been around for a while. Uh, Hey everybody, it's Alan and Victoria. We are back at you, and today we're going to talk about what everybody probably is so freaking tired of talking about. AI. I know you're shocked, uh, but there's a reason, and we think there's some value to what we're saying right now. So, Victoria, how you doing today?
Good. I feel really excited to talk today about because I feel like it's so applicable to what actually happens in a law firm and how the issues that practicing attorneys have
Right. We have
with
this.
this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, with this whole like AI thing.
Yeah, we have this new technology that everybody has been. I mean, you go on LinkedIn, every other, if not every post is about AI. And it's usually somebody getting snarky with somebody else in the comments. But we want to look at the regulations that are out. We want to talk about for lawyers how crazy this has been for one. And then we're going to actually dive a little bit into the ridiculousness of some of this. And this all started, you and I started brainstorming and talking about this in depth last week off of, we saw a LinkedIn post. Do you have that one by chance? We can shout her out and read her post.
Yeah, so this is I'm gonna butcher the last name, so I apologize. We will tag her in.
That's
But
why you're doing it.
Amy, yeah, exactly. Amy Salzian. She's a professor out of the University of Ottawa.
Okay.
And the post that she put on LinkedIn was legal AI crowdsourcing question. Can anyone point me to a website or websites that are keeping track of all of the US state bar and court generative AI guidance that has come out since November 2022? So she is, being a professor, I'm sure she is doing some type of like research and maybe trying to compile what different guidelines there are out there.
Right.
I think what a lot of people who are not in the legal space don't understand is that yes, we have the American Bar Association that kind of gives us the overall blanket rules of ethics and code of ethics that we have to follow. But oftentimes it is our local court, our local judge that sets their rules that they want us to follow. So oftentimes I think clients don't understand how important it is to choose an attorney that has lots of um, that has connections or that has lots of education about the court that they're going to be in or the judges that they're going to be talking to. You don't just want to hire an attorney that, has the big billboards or, like has these, like they say that they're so aggressive, because the thing is, the legal world is very much a people relationship world. So we as attorneys have to follow these guidelines. So if we submit a brief, it has to be X amount of pages, this type of type font. It has to include this amount of information. And that's separate from a different judge, separate from a different county. So the paralegals are on top of this, right? They have the guidelines printed out. They know what to do. I spit something out. They revise it and manage it so that it fits the guidelines and then it goes, right?
Right.
So these rules and regulations are also dependent on the local courts and their feelings about it. So if you kind of think about an implementation of software in your firm and you go to put the software in the firm and you have the new attorney who's like, yeah, I totally know how to do this. And then you still have the partner attorney who's like, how do you make a PDF file? right? Like
Yeah.
the same thing's kind of happening here, right? We have this generative AI movement. These new attorneys are using it. These judges still don't know what it is. So they're playing catch up to these lightning changes that are happening in technology and the law. And they are having to create guidelines, good or bad. You know, they may not even make sense, which I
They're
think you and
almost
I are going to get
reactive
into.
guidelines to this technology that
Yeah.
nobody quite grasps.
Right. And these reactive policies kind of don't make sense. And that's what I'm looking forward to kind of talking
Can I ask a
today.
question?
Yeah.
For people who are listening, well, most people listening probably are familiar with this, but and you did touch on it. Like a lot of people think ABA, it's all the legal rules that any lawyer has to know, but that's just like you said, a piece. Uh, the United States is a patchwork of separation, right? And that includes in the court system. Uh,
Yes.
every state has a bar. Every jurisdiction within a county has a bar. I mean, not a bar, but rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And so, but when I'm looking at this list of that we have found of the different AI rules and regulations, man, there are a lot of them, and most of them aren't. They don't line up. So, I'll ask you this: is there an overall AI rule anywhere in the legal system yet?
I think there are suggestions and there oh my gosh, my door just opened. It was a cat. That freaked me out. Sorry. I'm like, my house is haunted. Um, so here's what it typically falls under, and sorry, everyone, I don't know the exact rule, but there's the ABA rule that states like anything that you will couple, anything that you put to the court, you have to like certify that it is legit, right? That these cases are real. You've done your due diligence.
Right.
And so what we've seen in many ways, right, with using generative AI, that these attorneys have gotten lazy, right? And they just put forth the work. And these judges, well, they're clerks, are catching these mistakes and
Well, they end up
saying,
with the
okay,
hallucinations that we are all familiar with by now, right? That fall into
exactly.
these briefings and documents.
So then who gets in trouble? The attorney does. And oftentimes they're fined and their reputation gets tainted in the court. So that matters on a very granular level because these attorneys are going to the judges over and over and over again. And if the
Right.
judge cannot trust you, they are more likely to add scrutiny to whatever thing that you provide to them. And it does trickle down to harming your client. So we know things are supposed to be neutral in a courtroom. We know that they're often not, right? You see the Supreme Court, you can DM me later, people. But like, so, we know that. But anyway, so the general rule is like attorneys shouldn't be providing false or frivolous cases or, wrong, ill-researched
Hasn't
briefs,
that
claims,
tell me
right?
that's always been a rule, right? I mean, I'm not a
Yes.
lawyer, you're a lawyer, but that I feel like you're always held to account with what you put forth to the court. Like that was pre-AI, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You probably
So,
guess where my question may go in a little bit about the need for added regulations, but we'll get there when we read some of these regulations. But yeah, continue.
yeah. So with this, so the penalty often falls onto the attorney, right? And when you are a partnering attorney with an associate attorney and they're doing the work for you, you as a partner are responsible for everyone underneath you. That includes your paralegal work. That include, it's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
So you have to be on your P's and Q's. It's often why partners are super stressed out, not just because of the demands and expectations from clients, but also because there is very much a formality that they have to adhere to in the court. And if the people below who are doing the work aren't doing it well, they get penalized. The whole firm gets penalized.
Yeah.
So again, hurts reputation, not great. So here we have this new system coming in place, right? This generative AI, which is pretty much just like a Google inquiry on crack, right? So like you
Yeah.
type into Google, like Google has been, right, accommodating to questions. I mean, that's why we see in the SEO world why FAQs get traction so well,
Yeah.
because it hits the main query and it gives a snippet, right? That's how AI was trained, off of all these trends that we have already been doing.
Yeah.
So we have this generative AI, right? Which is really just a normal Google inquiry that you're now putting into another system, and it's gathering this information. So now we are, because of the hallucinations, because now this is going to be controversial, because many people, many billionaires, many tech industry, many pros, right, have fed into this system and have forced the implementation of the system. And I think have falsely promised how great this generative AI is. It has then created this false security that you can use these LLMs as a way to create documents in the legal world. Everyone has picked up on this. LexisNexis has, Westlaw has, Thomas Reader, Bloomberg, right? Any big legal tech has done this. We've been thrown in our face, right? You can't Google something without generative AI popping up. You can't go on Google Docs without, Gemini popping. Like none of us
Grammarly.
asked for this.
Grammarly has generative AI,
Grammar,
and conveniently,
like,
they up the price on everything for across the board, whether you use it or not.
and it's just like, no one asked for this. There was never an opt in, opt out button. They're quite literally shoving and pushing
Well, you can't opt
this.
out because if you opt out, you're really behind the curve. Like you really can't. Like
Right.
if you want to be,
Can you opt out though? Can we go into Google Docs and opt out of Gemini?
mm, I don't think so. Just like we
Exactly.
can't opt out on, yeah, we can't opt out, and we're in the system. Um, a system that's built on a lot of promises, as you said, of what it can be or is already. And I'll say this though, like it does wonderful things. Like I mean, my lord, I use it all the time. I never trust it. I verify. But the thing is, when you're using it on a topic that you're not super familiar with, I bet you if you told whatever your preferred AI is to create a court document and showed it to me, I would be like, "Yeah, that looks great." But then under scrutiny from an expert, from someone in the field who does that all the time, and this is with everything, not just if I had this explained to me how to properly install a toilet, it's gonna do it. There's probably gonna be a plumber that comes along and goes, "Good luck with that," because they know they're practitioners of the thing.
Right.
And so that's I think a lot of us have been so enamored with AI, myself included, we've all had moments where we went, "Damn, that's good." And because it does such a spectacular job at looking like it did the right thing, uh,
Yes.
which is why I'm sure a lot of cases have gone through the court system and someone didn't catch a problem, but there are a lot of cases where a problem has been caught, and we heard about this right off early on when ChatGPT first
Yeah.
dropped. We knew it was coming. We knew someone was going to get sanctioned, and it has happened all the time. You type in lawyer sanctioned
Yes.
AI or lawyer sanctioned ChatGPT on Google, you're going to get page after page of people who did it. And it does run the gamut from new lawyers to lawyers who have been around for a while. So,
So I think like the way the courts are trying to react to this is by asking attorneys to include a disclaimer.
like self certifying that was
Yes.
used or not used.
So yes. So we've done our research, right? We've looked through these different sites that was provided on that LinkedIn post. There was a lot of great information given. Um some are better than others. Most of them do have a type of definition defining what generative AI is.
Okay.
And there's kind of this consensus that generative AI is a query based database.
Could you read?
So
Do you have
you
one of those up that we can kind of read and then so that they know what we're talking about?
Yes. Yes. So this came out of let me see here. I think this came out of a Texas
Okay.
court. So it says disclosure of use of generative AI. So, a brief prepared using generative AI must disclose this fact on the first page under the heading, quote, use of generative AI. If the presiding judge so directs, the party filing the brief must disclose the specific parts prepared using generative AI. It goes to say generative AI means a computer tool, whether referred to as generative AI or by another name, that is capable of generating new content, such as images and text, in response to a submitted prompt, such as a query, by learning from a large reference database of examples. A party who files a brief that does not contain the disclosure required by this subsection of this rule certifies that no part of the brief was prepared using generative AI.
I'd almost be scared to certify that I didn't use AI at this point because I don't know what tools that I'm using don't have it. I mean, so that one intrigues me because some of the states just say if you use generative AI at all, and then that one is very specific. You got to list the section that used AI, and like so.
If
My
the judge
question,
directs. If
if
the
the
judge
okay,
directs. Yeah.
um,
But overall, you do on the first page of your brief, you've got a label. This was generative AI.
all right. So what's the tipping point of did I use generative AI or not? Like, is it I'd use it to make this sentence to fix it because Grammarly is fixing a sentence or so, or is it that I did the paragraph, a page? What's the does it? It doesn't specify the tipping point, does it? It just says if you use it.
Yes, it just says if you use it. So for me, I think, in a typical law office, we have tons of templates, right? We aren't going to recreate the wheel. If you have
Yeah,
a complaint, for a specific type of action, then you've had a billion of them. So you
yeah,
just use the same template over and over again. And usually the template does include the code, the actual code of law and the statement of the statute and blah blah blah. So in that sense, I don't think I could consider that generative AI. I think you are then inputting your information. But to me, I think of how much people use like Claude or Copilot or, to ask it questions
yeah,
to get a better understanding of a thing and then doing some writing
yeah,
after you talked
yeah.
to your
So if I talked
generative
to
AI.
my AI and I asked, what state code does this fall under? It'll pull it and say, see, I even have questions there. What state code does it pull under? That's a very ask, answer, done, got the answer, easy to verify. But then what if an attorney starts asking scenarios of the generative AI and then uses those scenarios and then they're writing it in their own words from here to here? They're not copy and pasting, but they have used generative AI to create that. So now what they should be doing is if they do that, then taking all of those cases and verifying the case law, right? Just to make sure that you didn't get spat out a hallucination. So how do you get caught? Like if you're going for, I am, this is puzzling because I am trying to figure out how this is going to feasibly work if you're going to punish or sanction lawyers. Uh, and then that's just one, you only read one. Like every state has something that they've put out about some more comprehensive than others in some local
Correct.
jurisdictions. So this is tough.
I mean, I think it also was like a scarlet letter on your brief. Right? Like, is there going to be some form of hesitancy to say that you used generative AI? Is it going to be scrutinized even more? Is there going to be some negative reaction from a judge? Is there going to be some bias that's going to come up for using it? And then there was one, I think it was that of, no, it wasn't Illinois. Maybe it was Illinois. I think it
That's your
was
state. You
Illinois.
really should know your state's regulations, by the way. I'm just
That was so mean. You better cut that out. It's rude.
okay.
So, but it was identifying how it goes as far to say that you need to inform clients. So in
Okay.
the engagement letter that you write, right, to create that
Hmm.
relationship with the client, you have to disclose and you have to talk to your client about the extent in which you are using generative
Is
AI.
that was out of Florida, and that was from their 2023 when they were creating committees to figure
Oh
this
my
out to
god.
make the regulations. They decide one of the things that they wanted the advisory committee to address is whether a lawyer is required to obtain a client's informed consent to use generative AI in the client's representation. I think that's a if that regulation goes through and if that is a thing, that's pretty big too. Like, and I just wonder, is this going to become so ubiquitous like the internet? Like, and you and I have some anecdotes and some stuff we found of a lot of these same conversations were happening
Mhm.
25 years ago, you know,
Yeah.
30 years ago in the mid 90s where people were
Yeah.
saying this is, you know, this is scary. We don't know. We can't, core fear. Web info is unreliable, unauthenticated. Uh, this was all talked about with the bars, amongst lawyers in the day.
Yep.
Anyone can put anything on the internet, right? Never trust anything you see on the internet. Boy, I almost miss those days where it was that simple. Uh, so these
When
aren't
all we
necessarily
had
new.
was Wikipedia and our awesome English professors in college would just be like, "The only site you cannot use is Wikipedia."
And you know what
Like,
I
that
did?
was
You know what? That was my starting point for so much because you know what? I'm gonna use it and I'm gonna go into the little notations at the end and
yes.
I'm gonna go from there and find the real sources. And
Yep.
to this day though, it's so ingrained that when I write things, there's not a chance I'll ever say Wikipedia, even though
No.
they are so much more trustworthy than AI now. but
Yes.
but that's where it's a different era of work, right? And so that's another topic for another
Oh,
conversation
whole
of the
nother. Yeah.
research skills that are going by the wayside. Um,
You know what? I'm gonna say it's not necessarily research, it's discernment skills that
yeah,
is being attacked, but that's for, like, a whole 'nother video. So let's
yeah,
focus back on the actual, like, so you have Florida who is suggesting that they now have to state to their client, and that I think even in Florida, it had stated that you may need to adjust your fees with the implementation of generative
sure.
AI.
So what do you mean by that?
So what that means is it needs to so typically there's two ways, right, in which attorneys get paid. It's either through hourly or it's contingent. Well, actually three ways, right? So it's contingent and then there's flat fees.
Flat fee, yeah.
Yeah, flat fees. So, when it comes to more your litigation, you're gonna do more hourly. You're not gonna do like a flat fee. You'll do contingency or hourly. If you're family law, depending on what the thing is, whether it be a prenup or whether it be a amicable or amenable divorce, right? That might be a flat fee. I know I work in the flat fee world, right? I'm estate
Yeah,
planning, so I just do flat fees. Although there are times in which I have to include some hourly because some families be complicated. But
yeah.
anyway, um, so because of that, like if you're using generative AI software and because it's been so advertised and shoved down our throat that it's efficient and it makes things faster and you can get things
Mm,
done more securely and more trusted that we should then give the discount
I
to
see.
the client because somehow I'm doing less work.
So instead of
When
your 10 billable hours, you did it in one. Do you charge the same rate, or is it ethical? you know, interesting.
correct.
Interesting. I hadn't even
Correct.
thought of that until we saw that. It didn't even dawn on me. I know it dawned on you because I know you've brought this up with another lawyer friend of yours, but it didn't dawn on me that a lawyer would make less money because of generative AI. Y'all all make too much money anyway, don't you? So this is okay. I'm kidding, y'all. The loans
What's
and
so
the
funny is
expertise.
I talked to this attorney who had been in the field for almost 30 years now. And he said when he got out of law school, this is almost 30 years, okay? He entered the field and they were offering 40,000 to 60,000 a year. And I'm like, that hasn't changed.
No.
I know tons of my colleagues that got out of law school, and he was like, that's why he just started his own firm. He was like,
Yeah.
screw it. Like, it's
Especially
ridiculous.
where depending on where you're at in the United States, here in South Carolina, you're lucky to get in with a $50,000, $60,000 a year as out of law school, you know? That's
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy to me.
Yeah. So, we're in the middle of Chicago, and so was he. And I mean, I remember a good girlfriend of mine, she went into a PI firm, 60K.
Ugh,
And the amount of work that she had to do, I mean, this girl barely slept.
I bet.
And you're given this promise and this hope that, that if you do all this work, they'll give you the relationships, they'll give you the know-how, and you can go and do your own, or you can, it just takes one case, and then
Yeah.
you'll be a millionaire. Anyway, that's like a whole nother session. So, but it really is surprising. Like it hasn't shifted. Like it hasn't changed in 30 years. The intro really hasn't changed.
So
So,
let
unless
me
you want to
ask,
do defense work.
what do you think? Where do you think this is going to go? Like AI is clearly not going anywhere. We've seen a slowdown of like like the capability. Like ChatGPT 5 was launched recently. ChatGPT 4 was awesome. ChatGPT 5 wasn't as big of an advancement as people thought it was going to be. So it's not like it's still going to improve. There are a lot of things on the horizon. So with all that said, like it's here. Clearly there needs to be some more universal regulations for lawyers, especially lawyers that are learning this now. So, what do you think's going to happen? Like, do we have this patchwork of regulations? Do you think it'll all come together? What do you think?
So I think I mean, I think it's a really early stage. Um, I think if we dug deeper into the fears and hesitancy of using uh digital databases, how that was like a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Uh, we can kind of see the same fears being played out. I think people are it's still in the play out phase. I think everyone learned their lesson as soon as that sanction came out, which we knew was going to happen. I mean, you and I from day one knew it was
Hmm.
going to happen. I don't think we're the only ones that knew it was
Yeah.
going to happen. I think it was pretty much well understood that it was going to happen. I think what is very frustrating is the incessant noise of the tech industry that keeps making these proclamations about how fast and efficient and blah blah blah. Like it I think it only paralyzes people, um, not to use it, but to make decisions about how to use it, and
Well,
also I think
when they're making, well, okay, let's say I'm a AI tech bro owner, and I am selling these softwares to a law firm, right? Uh, in the software, for sure, they have sections that limit their liability if the lawyer uses something that was generated that was incorrect. I am fairly certain that that's
oh,
not going to
there
fall
is
on the tech companies at all.
absolutely no blame on these tech companies. Absolutely no
But they'll
blame.
promise you that they can get it. They're shoving it on you and saying this is the game changer, but then they're absolving
100%.
themselves of liability when something
100%.
does go wrong, because something will go wrong. Because I think it almost seems like they want lawyers to stop doing legal work. Uh, and then to rely and trust that AI is going to do it right.
So here's the thing. I think there are avenues of potential transactional work like I'm in, right? Like doing estate planning. I think it does make my life easier, and it's not even generative AI that's making it easier. It's software that I'm using that's making it easier. Um and it's making the implementation process easier from intake to finish. So
Okay.
in that sense, that's making things better. But I know a lot of people in contract law like to use generative AI to help them craft clauses and language in clauses. I just think there's going to be a little bit of a war of human versus like machine, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Stacy in contracts has been doing this for 20, 30 plus years, and she has the history and knowledge of how these contracts started, this institutional knowledge of these contracts and how they've been formulated. She herself is a generative AI, right? Like because of all that she has.
Mm,
So I have a little bit of fear that it's going to be once again almost like the boomers that are refusing to freaking let go of power. There's now going to be a whole nother shelf of people who have a deep history of this stuff that is just going to hang on as long as possible. And there's going to be such a disconnect because these AI programs aren't looking at these authoritative figures to gather information. I think I had seen a post where like these LLMs are looking at data as a whole on the
yeah.
internet. So looking at like Reddit to find
Oh,
answers.
for sure. It's one of the
It,
most cited sources for ChatGPT
yeah,
and the other LLMs. Yeah.
right. Here's what I here's also what I think is gonna happen is there has to be, and Meridian West is doing it. Um, I feel like Meridian West is it's a UK-based company,
Hmm.
and there's so much good stuff coming out of the
We know
UK.
them, don't we? We
So
know them. We've met them.
we do know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I've really I love hearing what's coming out of them because what they are essentially doing is instead of building an LLM based on all this like the world, right, that like chat is doing, they focus on the institutional knowledge of the firm and they
Mm.
build the LLM privately within the confines of that firm.
Yeah.
And I
Secure that
think
way.
that is the route to go. How great it would have been for me going into an associate position, brand new to the firm, brand new to this area of law, and for me to be able to ask a query, what is the most recent
Mm.
brief regarding slip and fall? And it pulls up
Oh,
all
yeah.
the briefs that have been used just at my firm. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear the noise of people who are not experts.
Yeah.
I want it to be narrowed and focused. I mean, LexisNexis does that, right? Like you can ask it, but then again, I mean, you can narrow it down to your state, narrow it down to your city, I think, but it's still not like a institutional knowledge. It's still like a bigger database. So, um, I don't know. I think I can't tell if judges or courts saying tell us it's a generative AI brief is a warning
Mm.
or some type of fear tactic to like don't do it.
I just
Don't
don't
use
see. I
generative
don't.
AI.
That, well, that's not even going to be an option. It's going to get used. Uh, not. I mean, it's just going to get used.
No,
And
I know that it is. I'm just saying I don't know if it's the courts trying
well,
to like heed a warning, right? Of like and I know that, you know, lawyers shouldn't lie, but I could totally see a gray area where your attorney goes to their LLM, asks a bunch of questions, they don't copy and paste, they think about it, and then they go to the page and write, and it's the
well,
same
then how do you
thing.
know? How do you know that it what that you won't know whether they use generative AI or not at that point? And
Right?
I think that's where we fall back to the policies already in place, the disciplinary policies that are in place for when things like that happen. Because all AI is doing is speeding up the errors. you know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
speeding
true.
up the errors and making
Yeah.
them look really good, so they don't look like errors. Uh,
Yeah.
and so. we're fast tracked a lot of this, and maybe some of the old disciplinary policies within the state boards need to be updated. For sure, they will.
Mhm.
But I think we're probably going to be, I think any regulation made right now is too soon, because
Yeah,
we don't know
I
where it's
agree.
going. I think there's going to
Yeah.
be some years of discomfort of attorneys battling with judges and vice versa, and they're going to have to figure it out once things calm down a little bit. Once we kind of see where this is going and how it affects the industry, which is happening so fast, but maybe we're still a few years away from solid AI regulations, and will we even have them? Will it just not
Yeah.
fall back under we don't have specific that I know of, like internet policies for lawyers. I'm sure it's mentioned, but I'm sure those old policies were updated as new technology comes on board. Um,
Well, and like and I've said before, even on like my LinkedIn posts, like what I didn't understand as a lawyer going in, the software and the advantages that I had in law school are not the same when you get out. The
yeah,
softwares that are available to you, the programs that are available to you once you leave your law school and enter the workplace, depending on what kind of workplace, if they have the resources, you're not getting that at all. So
yeah,
there's still like a stiff cliff, right? A
yeah.
drop that we as practitioners feel, and it's almost like this, these softwares that are pulling in generative AI, it's giving me paperclip, it's giving me Microsoft Word paperclip. Like that's what it is. It's giving me chatbot, it's giving me.
Someone called ChatGPT Clippy on cocaine.
Yes, yes, that's literally what I said earlier. Yes, Google on crack, like, that's what it is, like, it's so eager to give you an answer that it doesn't matter if it's wrong, you know? And I don't wanna be a fatalist and say that, like, "Oh, the legal industry is gonna go away," like, it's not gonna go away, lawyers aren't gonna lose their job. Are there gonna be law firms that take advantage? 100%. How that's gonna play out? I don't know. If I look at our situation in doing SEO work and how we had to wait really patiently during that early, 2022, 2023,
Yeah.
when you and I were basically like clenching our butts the entire year because we're like,
Hmm.
are we in a business that's about to become extinct?
Yeah.
And we stood our ground and we said, if you're going to use Gen AI to make content, go for it. We're going to be here. We're going to still do our thing. And lo and behold, we grew
Still kicking.
because it's again the noise of the tech industry. And when you actually go to do it and write it, it's not to a lay person. It's like, oh, this looks so good. I mean, I even remember you and I looking at it and we're like, man, this is really good. And then we
For
kept
sure.
doing it. And then we were like, this is not so great, you
Well, and you
know?
found the flaws the farther we went in, and with our particular what we were able to do with it. I'm not going to hold everybody too much longer, but I am
Oh
going to
yeah.
kind of preview something we're going to talk about, and this just dawned on me. I'm going to send you a podcast, and listeners, if you're listening, we'll bring it back next time. Victoria, there is an all AI law firm out of in the UK that it's the only one that's
Mm-hmm.
gotten the approval. So we'll brush up on that, and because what I can see is regulatory bodies here looking at that and going,
Mm-hmm.
let's see how that works before
Yep.
we start allowing. Because I feel like something like that's going to happen here eventually, even if it's just experimentation with close
Yep.
eyes on it. So, yeah. So, folks, we're in the midst of a change in the legal field, and we're in a great position, Victoria and I, because she's an attorney. We also own a marketing company. We're deep in the aura of law firm marketing and where regulations are going. So we're going to bring you discussions like this every now and again about what's happening. Some of our videos may be longer, some may be shorter. If we have updates, we'll just throw a video out there. But anyway, we would appreciate a like and subscribe down below.
Like and
Yeah, like and
subscribe.
subscribe. We almost got 20. We're at 19 subscribers. We are almost at 20.
Woo!
We've almost gotten there. Folks, we'll be back again soon. Thank you for stopping by. We hope you stuck around the whole time. If you didn't, then you're going to miss this part. Bye, everybody.
And then there was one, I think it was that of no, it wasn't Illinois. It was maybe it was Illinois. I think it
That's your
was
state. You
Illinois.
really should know your state's regulations, by the way. I'm just
That was so mean. You better cut that out. That's rude.
Okay.
So